Good evening. I'll call to order the Arvada City Council meeting for August 18th, 2023. And Councilmember Fifer, will you step in here?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I believe you said August 18th.
You know, I'm just trying to add more meetings. So September 18th, 2023. I'm living in the past.
Yeah, would everyone please join me in a moment of silent reflection? And now for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Kristen Rush, if you'll do the roll call.
Mayor Williams?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jones?
Here.
Councilmember Foray?
Here.
Councilmember Fifer?
Here.
Councilmember Marriott?
Here.
Councilmember Mormon?
Here.
Councilmember Simpson?
Here.
We will now move on to public comment. And Daniel Mondragon, you're first. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, how are you?
Good.
Once again, thank you so much for your continued effort to pronounce my name correctly. It is with much gratitude for your honoring and the respect that you show me by doing so. Thank you so much. I come tonight also with 3 thank yous and some requests. First of all, the first thank you is a thank you to all of you for your service to Arvada, especially those of you who will soon be private citizens. I'm deeply grateful for your service for our community, for our city. Thank you so much. I am grateful for, and I say thank you for the DEI process that has been undertaken with the consultants that were brought on board. And for the listening sessions, I thank you for that opportunity to be involved with the process. My first request is a request that I have that opportunity to see the report from the consultant when it is available. And I request that it be made public for all to be able to read it and see the report from the consultant. And I wish to say my third thank you, a thank you for those of you who I contacted regarding the graffiti issue a few weeks ago that I brought to your attention. I appreciate your leadership to get it taken care of in as expeditiously as possible. So thank you so much for your attention in that horrendous situation. A message that was put on a wall in our city that conveyed a message of sexual violence and used a racist term, an unspeakable racist term that I hope will never happen again. And that can only happen in our city through leadership and through collaborative action. I am hopeful that we have the opportunity in moving forward, that we can, on the tail of doing the DEI process, work collaboratively and have strong leadership and vocalization of condemnation for any messages that are put out that would demean anyone in our city. So I'm grateful for what you have done. I call on y'all to do even more as elected leaders and as private citizens. Let's work together to make Arvada as wonderful a place we know it to be for the citizens that are here now and residents that will be coming in the coming months and years. Speaking of leadership, I do want to note that I am grateful for the leadership that we witnessed last Friday when the National Renaming Board made a name change, that now the mountain to the west of us that bore the name of a territorial governor that was the cause of the killing of innocent Native American individuals, elderly children, women. He was removed, and now his name has been removed. And Mount Blue Sky is now the name of that beautiful mountain to the west of the Denver area. And I call upon us, I call upon you to issue a statement of congratulations, of affirmation, and honoring that that name can be a name that we can rally around and say, yes, let us move forward together lamenting and remembering the atrocities of the past? What will you do for diversity, equity, inclusion, and respect? I have to also cite one more example. I'm mindful of Governor Carr, who was not silent when Japanese Americans were interned during World War II. Again, what can you do? What can we do as a community to ensure that all are included, are shown respect, opportunity is given for all to be able to be active and contributing members of our community, and that diversity is celebrated. Once again, I thank you for your service and for all that you have done, and I look forward to seeing Arvada and being a part of an Arvada that is strong for the future.
Thank you, sir. Jeremy Long.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm not known for brevity, so I'm going to try to mostly read from this. I printed out some visuals to kind of
If you want to give it to the city clerk, she'll
Okay.
make sure that we get copies of it down the road.
There you go. So my name is Jeremy Long. I live in 5 Parks in Arvada on Coors Street, just north of 86 Parkway. I have 2 sons who are 4 and 6 that attend Micklejohn Elementary. The school's less than a mile from our house. They're in preschool and 2nd grade this year. So it's about the intersection at 86 Parkway and 5 Parks Drive that I'm here to speak with you about tonight. We moved into our house in September of 2021, so just about 2 years ago. And in the 2 years since, I've been involved in at least 7 incidents that I can remember and witnessed many more in that intersection. So I handed out those documents that you're looking at now. So I'll just kind of run through some of the incidents real quick that I've been involved in. One is just cars turning off of 5 Parks Drive from the north side onto the east side. I see multiple times a day, one person specifically every morning. They basically treat that intersection as more of a stop sign, so they just kind of pull up to the red light, pull out a little bit, and then just turn even on the red. Especially as it's getting darker, it's more concerning when they're turning, without waiting for the light. The X is basically multiple times from that same intersection, even when the light turns green, when we have the pedestrian sign says walk, they just start turning even when I'm in the intersection. So twice just with me, and then once just last week with my son as we were walking across, a car just started turning. We were in the middle of the crosswalk, and I had to pull him out of the way, just in time. They ended up slamming on their brakes once I jumped out of the way, and the car just kept going. So I've run into that multiple times. A couple times cars have just blown right through, going from the west side through the east side, just straight through the red light, or it may be slowing down and going through. And then once on the way to school, my son was about to cross and going from basically the east side through the west side on 86th. I noticed this car was still going very fast. It had already changed. And my son was about to start going out, and I told him to wait. And the car just, 40, 45 miles an hour right through the intersection, through the red light. It was, he would have been right there if it had, gone through. So luckily I had him stop. But just because of all those, and I've talked to people in the community that have been like, oh my God, I've had that same stuff happen to me. So just was curious. I guess I'm hoping tonight to walk away with sort of what good next steps would be, what you guys might be able to help with, or if there's anything you recommend, should I report every single time to the police, or, what would be good actions, and then just any sort of recommended follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our process during public comment is to take your comment. We've got your information. Somebody will be back in touch with you
Okay.
to
Thanks so
discuss
much.
next steps. Thank you. Anybody else wish to address City Council at this time? Do we have anybody on Zoom? Fair enough. With that, we'll move on to resolutions. We have Resolution R23080, a resolution authorizing contract amendment number 2 to a State of Colorado Behavioral Health Administration contract number 23 IBEH 174364 to provide grant funding to the city for the Arvada Police Department Co-Responder Program. And Aaron Jacks from our City Attorney's Office is going to explain this to us. Maybe. I don't see her.
Good evening. Melanie Thornton with the Police
Very
Department.
good, thank you.
Looks like Aaron couldn't make it, so
Okay.
I'll fill in
Great,
briefly.
thank you.
So this is actually additional funding. We did not expect to expand the co-responder program, so we'll be adding a case manager, but early. So we are in the process of hiring that position. This is additional funding to cover it fully.
Very good. Council, have any questions or concerns?
Question, Commander Thornton. The question I have is, it looked like from the material we were provided that these grants, and this is in addition to a bigger grant, but these two grants pay for the whole program, the whole co-responder program. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And has that been correct in every year that we've had the program, or is that unique to just this year?
This year, they're paying additional funding to add a third position, but we've had this funding since 2019, and they've been covering it fully since then.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Yes.
In adding the third position, are we going to be able to expand hours outside of traditional business hours?
So the purpose of this position is to take all the administrative work, and so that will actually free up our field clinicians so that they can be out fully in the field rather than limiting their time to partially in the field and partially in the office. So currently they cover Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and then sometimes they adjust their hours into the evening. So right now, we're just trying to expand a little bit into the evening, but this is not a field clinician.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll take the motion.
Go ahead, Ms. Simpson.
All right. I move that R23-080, a resolution authorizing contract amendment number 2 to a State of Colorado Behavioral Health Administration contract number 23 IBEH 174364 to provide grant funding to the City of Arvada Police Department co-responder program be approved.
Motions for approval. I know we're all used to being able to push our buttons and our system is down. Ms. Frey, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Fifer? Yes. Mr. Mormon?
Yes.
Ms. Simpson?
Yes.
And the mayor votes yes as well, passes 7-0. Next, we have R23-081, a resolution authorizing an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement by and between the City of Arvada and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, for additional 2022 Community Development Block Grant CDBG funds in the amount of $18,821. And Carrie Espinoza, our Manager of Housing Preservation Resources, is going to enlighten us on this one.
Good evening. The Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG program, supports community development activities to build stronger and more resilient communities. The City of Arvada is an entitlement community and receives an annual CDBG grant from HUD. The Arvada 2022 CDBG funding agreement from HUD totaled $445,942 and was approved by the Arvada City Council through Resolution R22-081. In August 2022, HUD notified the city that it was eligible to receive an additional $18,821 of CDBG funds for the 2022 program year. On August 21st, 2023, HUD issued an amended 2022 funding agreement to the City of Arvada for a total of $464,763 for city approval. Tonight, the city team is recommending approval of Resolution R23-081, authorizing an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with HUD to accept the additional funds.
Very good. Open up for council questions or actions.
I'll make the motion if that's all right.
You may. I don't see anybody wanting to ask any questions. Go ahead.
I move that R23-081, a resolution authorizing amendment to an intergovernmental agreement by and between the City of Arvada and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, for additional 2022 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG funds in the amount of $18,821 be approved.
Motions for approval. Ms. Ferre?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Fifer? Yes. Mr. Mormon?
Yes.
Ms. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Marriott?
Yes.
Mayor votes yes as well. That passes 7-0.
Thank you.
And Mr. Jones, are you ready to lead us through our first reading?
I am, thank you, Your Honor. I move that Council Bill 23-024, an ordinance amending Article 4, Engineering Code of Standards and Specifications of Chapter 78, Public Improvements of the City of Arvada City Code, thereby repealing the existing engineering code of standards and specifications for design and construction of public improvements dated July 26, 2022, and adopting a new code titled Engineering Code of Standards and Specifications dated August 21st, 2023, be approved on first reading, ordered, published in full, and a public hearing date set for October 2nd, 2023 at 6:15 p.m.
Motion's for approval. How do you vote on your motion, Mr. Jones?
I vote yes.
Ms. Ferre?
Yes.
Mr. Marriott?
Yes.
Ms. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Mormon?
Yes.
Mr. Fifer?
Yes.
Mayor votes yes. That passes 7-0. Thank you. Yeah, it's a little tricky having to do it the old-fashioned way. We do not have a public hearing tonight, but instead we have a water, wastewater, and stormwater 2024 rate and fee recommendation workshop, which for us old-timers is known as the Steve Urban hearing. So,
good evening, Mayor and members of Council. It's always a pleasure to be here with you to talk about our water, wastewater, and stormwater utilities. I'm Sharon Israel. I'm the Utilities Director for the city. I also want to acknowledge Christine Gray, who's here. She's our Utilities Business Manager, and she was a strong partner here working with me and the rest of the team on developing the recommendation we'll be presenting to you tonight. You've heard me talk the last few years now. On an annual basis, we prepare a recommendation for Council's consideration. The purpose of the workshop tonight will be to share with you our recommendations, answer any questions you may have, and then we would like to ask for Council's direction on what you would like to see us bring in terms of a final ordinance, if any, that would adopt our recommendation. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about the why. Why is this important? Why do we do this? And a quick review of the utilities financial strategy. We'll walk through the recommendations that we have for you tonight and cover a few special topics. One is affordability. This is a topic that we've discussed several times with Council over the last year or two. We want to share with you how we're planning to communicate out any changes that are adopted. I'm happy to be sharing an update on our smart meter project, and then next steps on budget process. Next slide, please. This slide may start to look familiar. The why behind why we're doing this is we want reliable and water and sewer service for our community. We have done the master planning, and we have got aging infrastructure, so we need to do reinvestment in existing assets. And at the same time, we have this wonderful, strong growth of planned development that we want to make sure we have capacity for so we can provide reliable water and sewer service to them as well. Next slide. So a little trip down memory lane. Back in 2019, we started introducing the findings from our water master plans, and shortly after presented to Council our sewer and stormwater master plan findings. And back in 2021, we approached City Council with some initial concepts for a financial strategy that would help us implement those master plans. Last year, we presented a roadmap that was our recommendation and a couple alternatives. I'm gonna pull that slide out from the archives and show you, revisit it tonight and make sure that we're all aligned. And then as a reminder, we are working within enterprise funds. So we have certain revenue sources for those enterprise funds. We can make annual rate adjustments. We can make annual bi-monthly service fee adjustments. We have done that for the past couple of years. Most recently, the council approved an adjustment to system development charges, or TAP fees, which will be effective here in a couple weeks. We also can and have taken advantage of debt financing options to help raise money for these projects that we need. So you'll remember, this is actually December 2022 bonds, 50 million water, 50 million sewer. And we're continuing to look at what debt issues look like through bonds. A lot of the federal money that's coming for infrastructure is coming through the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority in the form of low-interest loans in the state revolving loan fund. And then there are some smaller buckets of grants and low-interest loans that we're also tracking. So rest assured that we're trying to find money that is as cheap as possible if we do need to borrow anything.
Ms. Israel, I'm going to stop you for just a second.
Yes.
Because our slides, I can't see either Ms. Ferre or Mr. Jones. So if you want to pipe in with any questions, feel free to jump in. Same true for any of the rest of council, since we don't have our button system. So, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Next slide, please. So you'll remember that this is another reason why we're doing this. Council has directed us to replace aging infrastructure and maintain the lowest practical rates. We believe the recommendation tonight is doing that. We are also directed to complete the master plans, and then there is a milestone that sunsets the end of this year that directs us to incorporate those findings from master plans into our 10-year CIP budget, and this also reflects that. Next slide. We also have the strategic result at the city level on financial resiliency. And we believe that the recommendation tonight also supports this strategic result, helping us continue this journey of identifying where we can find resources that will help us support level of service that we want to provide to the community. Next slide. This is the slide that I said I dusted off from the archives, so you may recall seeing it before. Our recommended roadmap from last year was to adjust rate and service fee revenue pretty aggressively, and also adjust system development charges, because we had some catching up to do. In order to provide the level of service for the community, we believe that the roadmap we presented was the right pathway, and what we heard from council last year is to take that path. But as a reminder, there are other off-ramps from this path. We could extend the schedule of our project delivery. It's got some downsides over time. We will see escalated project costs, potentially slow the pace of plan development. And I want to talk about that specifically in the context of rates, because many of our capital projects serve to both replace aging infrastructure at the same time as adding capacity. So a lot of these projects are shared revenue streams from our system development charges and our rates, because we have, for example, sections of the North Trunk Line sewer that need to be expanded for capacity reasons, but they're also 60 years old, and so condition's an issue. So even if we keep system development charges advancing as council's recently approved, if we don't keep rates to kind of keep up on the reinvestment side of those capital projects, it's hard for us to move forward as planned for both reinvestment and capacity. And then there's the existing model, which is sort of the no action, which still has some increases in out years, but we're concerned about the condition of our aging infrastructure and really don't recommend that, but it is an option should council give us that direction. So tonight's recommendations align with the roadmap that we presented last year. Next slide, please. So here is the bottom line, and we'll dig into this in the future slides, but let's start with water. So good news is that Denver Water is only raising our rates 0.7%, which is much lower than we forecast. Part of the reason for that is there is a new Arvada rate schedule that Denver Water's board is adopting this year. The reason for that special Arvada rate schedule is we're buying 1/6 of the capital investment in gross reservoir expansion. And so we wanted to make sure that Denver Water wasn't charging us twice. That is, we're paying for the portion of the capital investment of the gross reservoir expansion, and the other raw water customers will have to pay higher rates to help pay for that. But since we're paying for it directly, we're getting a lower rate. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. Yes.
Thank you. I actually do have a question, and not so much about that. I totally understand that.
Yeah.
The question I have more is here, the recommendation of the 12% increase in the water thing, given that our raw water rate increase is so much less than we expected. That 12% would have been based on an assumption of what from Denver Water?
So the 12% includes the 0.7% rate increase. So I think we typically expect somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 5% from Denver Water.
Right.
So let's dig into that 12% recommendation. So within that, first of all, we did some trade-off work internal to the fund before we even decided to make any rate recommendation increase. So we looked for where we might have cost savings, or maybe a project had some extra dollars in it. We were able to reallocate that. So after we did some of that fine-tuning, we worked with a consultant to do a 10-year model that incorporated our CIP needs from the master plans. And so some of those are very expensive. There is $300 million in there for a new water treatment plant. And so if we're going to replace a water treatment plant in accordance with the master plan, some of those major investments come in later years. So you'll see here, there was a 25% increase that was floated to us as a result of that modeling with a consultant. We just thought that was really aggressive. We've heard direction from council in the past that we want to be smoother with our increases. I think what you'll see when I show you the comps is that even if we did do a 25% increase, we still wouldn't be at the top of any range of our comparative cities. So 12% was a little bit of a judgment call in terms of being able to fund a significant amount of our CIP, keep up with inflation. There's $1 million in there for additional cost of equipment, supplies, and at the same time, try to keep the rates as low as practical.
Okay. So let me just expand on my question just a little bit.
Yeah.
So as I remember when we did the master plan and talked about the financial strategies, particularly, we talked about system development charges and kind of a shift that's happening as the system's largely built out to both the fixed fee and the rates, taking on a bit more of the share of kind of capital purchases there as there is less system development charges to come. And so I understand that. I also understand you're collecting money now for projects to be done later down the road, and any money you collect now should be. However, I didn't think we were going to be completely untethered from our actual costs when we figure rate increases. And I also understand, on the other hand, our system development charges that we had contemplated end up being somewhat different from that, and in a way that's unfavorable for the financial model. So I see several different pieces there, kind of moving pieces that make up this 12% recommendation. I guess I would have, my own assumption might have been that we would have been more on the lower end of that, of those recommendations, given the lack of water increase that we had from Denver Water, that there'd have been some reflection that because our costs are not going up as fast as we thought, that maybe our increases, while still needing to take care of all those capital things, maybe wouldn't be as high. And just wonder if we've contemplated some tethering there rather than kind of what looks to me like almost an untethered approach at this point.
I can speak a bit to the system development charge role in this. So as we're developing the capital component, which I'll show in the next few slides, a breakdown of where each of these increases would go if we had additional revenue. But when we look at any specific capital project, we establish an estimate of the percentage that should be paid for from rates and fees, and a percentage that should be paid for from system development charges. And so while there is a lower forecasted revenue based on the new system development charge schedule, that hole, if you will, in our overall budget is not being backfilled with rates and fees right now. So we consider those calculations separately. So let's just say there's a 50-50 split on a project. Our engineers estimate that 50% of it is reinvestment, 50% of the cost should come from system development charges to add capacity. So 50, in this case, we completely separate out the 50% that's rate and fee funded and do a model based specifically on that. And then again, separately for system development charges, how do we get to the capacity, the dollars we need to add capacity? So like I said, this 12% is a bit of a judgment call because the model did call for a higher rate increase than we're proposing tonight. What that essentially does is it serves to push out and delay some of our capital projects. So it's a little bit of, can you go back to the last slide, please? So there is a little bit of that extended schedule in there. We're not prepared to sort of formalize exactly which year because we're still doing some modeling. But in essence, by not raising by a full 25%, which I know sounds like a lot, and it certainly is, there is, as a practical matter, pushing out some of the other projects.
Yeah.
So it's really about the capital costs that we're paying. We're not asking for new positions this year. You know, there's a very small amount of one position, for example, that we're proposing to move to this fund, and we can talk about that in that slide. But the vast majority of this increase is going to go to capital projects identified in the master plan.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I would have a longer discussion with you about it at some point if you wanted to,
Sure.
but for tonight, I think you're fine.
I love to geek out about this, as you may all recall. So
Apparently, I do
thank
too.
you. Thank you.
Sharon, can I follow up with a
Please.
question?
Yeah.
So, looking back at the roadmap and you know the second bullet about how we're going to adjust the rate and service fees yearly. So the increase we're looking at for this year, the 12% increase underwater, for example, the $4 per month bi-monthly. Remind me, what was it that we increased last year? Was it the same percentage? And what are we projecting for next year as well? I mean, if it's the same, I get it. But if it's going to vary for the modeling, I would appreciate like showing that comparison year to year, what that looks like.
Yes, we are working on that answer right now as far as what would rates need to be each year for the next 10 years. So I don't have that to present tonight, but that's certainly something that we're working on. Compared to last year, we were 12.3% increase on water and a $2 per month, $4 bi-monthly service fee increase. So we're a little bit less this year. What you're going to see in the future slides, like we like to provide at this annual presentation, is a comparison of where we are with all the other communities too. So that should help. What I can tell you is that, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So the 25% for this year, it was followed up by a 25% increase for next year from the modeling that we're doing. Now, we're not recommending that, but it's forcing us to really refine and prioritize our projects so that we're able to keep things. We've heard the mayor say many times, we like to see rates in the middle of the neighborhood, and we're continuing to do that with these recommendations. But I think what will happen is that we are going to have to push even harder to make sure that we're clear on which projects we can afford from the master plan and which ones we're just probably won't be able to afford without more aggressive increases. So we try to be true to the strategic result that directs us to take the master plan findings and figure out a way to build them into the budget. We're still doing work, and I expect that in the next 12 months we'll be returning to you with some more better answers to your question.
Okay, but we'll be voting, though, on these increases prior to that next 12 months.
That's right. So our recommendation would, if council gives us direction tonight, would be to bring the ordinances at the same nights that the budget is scheduled to come forward. So right now that's October 2nd and 16th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Well, I might have for you. Can you remind me what I know we added the fee last year, the $4, $2 a month for, I think it might, does it call it out on your next slides? I don't think it does, but, because you just lump all the revenue together. Could you remind me in the flat dollar amount, why we called that out versus the percentage?
Yes, I can. The increase for water would be $81 annually for a typical single-family home, and monthly would be $6.75 for a single-family home if this were to be adopted as proposed for water.
Oh, so the percentages as well as the $6, the monthly fixed fee.
Yes, and so let me back up and say the combined, so if we add the water, sewer, and stormwater, all the recommendations, including the rates and fixed fee increases. The total is $130.20 for a typical single-family home for the year. And so that's just shy of $11 a month. That would be the total increase for a typical single-family home if all of these are adopted.
So a typical family spends how much? Because you're saying if it's only 100 and some change and we're doing 12%, 12%, 5% increases, I know my bill's not that low.
You know, we can skip to the slide that shows some of the comparisons, if that would help.
Yeah, I think, well, let me back up here. Maybe I'm not asking my question clear enough. The fixed fee, what is the fixed fee again?
So this is a fee that we hadn't increased for a long time, and following industry best practice, we're trying to shift more of our revenue to a fixed source than we had before. We started, I think, about 3% of our revenue was from a fixed source. There are many in the industry that have shifted to as high as 20% of their total revenue comes from a fixed source. And what that does is it helps stabilize our incoming funds from wet years to dry years. But what we did is we started 2 years ago going from about $5 a month for water, bi-monthly for water, and then on a journey to sort of try to get to the median of the whole metro area over the course of 5 years. So what we tried to do is get from about $2 a month to $12 a month, or about $4 and change bi-monthly to about $24 bi-monthly. So this is a big aggressive change, but what that does is it first of all helps stabilize our revenue sources so we have more of that fixed income. It also serves to help provide additional revenue for the projects identified in the master plan. So we're on this sort of 5-year journey right now of making incremental adjustments along with the volumetric rate increases.
So are you saying here not only a 12% increase for water, but an additional $4 on top of the fixed fee?
That's right.
And because we're not saying what the fixed fee is right now, what is the fixed fee right now? So we're already going from and to.
Yeah, so I think it's $13.83 to $17.83.
Combined?
That's for water.
Okay, so we're going from $13 to $17 a month just for water, flat fee.
That's right.
On top
bi-monthly, I'm sorry.
Bi-monthly.
Because we bill bi-monthly.
Yeah. So 17 plus a 12%. Okay. And I want to just underscore, I think it would be good if we saw like the 10-year of what you're trying to do here.
Yes.
I think why this feels like a rinse and repeat conversation for me is because we always have this, and then you spend a lot of time trying to re-educate us back. Because honestly, I mean, there's smarter people in this room, but I can't remember. I remember part of this conversation, but trying to go back to like even your roadmap, there was more content to that roadmap that led us to that direction that I'm missing. Like I'd almost feel like we should go back to that conversation, that roadmap, because I know it was that one. Because you're saying we landed on number 1, but there was a lot of information that landed there that is maybe deviated, kind of what Councilmember Marriott is saying, is we anticipated an increase of 7% or whatever from Denver Water, and it only came under 1%, and yet I get what you're saying, extending, but I don't know if I'll pick the right words, but what we're doing is we're taking more money to maybe bring the project sooner, possibly, because our expenses are not as high as we anticipated with this increase. So I think what frustrates me just a little bit is that I wish we'd spend a little bit more time catching us back up a little bit of how we got onto this roadmap, and then what was discussed compared to where we are today. Because, I mean, honestly, seeing that the Denver Water is not there, I struggle with you still asking for 12% increase. It's a lot of money, and the money, the way that it's being presented monthly by monthly and some confusion around it, I think it's hard for our constituency to understand why we keep doing these large increases. So we probably we should have spent a little bit more time in this area to get us back up, and more stare and compare. And maybe I'm looking at Brian over here to maybe give a better of this is our trajectory, this is where we are, not where we're sitting today, but where are we trying to go? Because this is a journey you're telling us about, and you've been saying it for years. And I feel like this journey, we keep coming up to a fork in the road, and then you're gonna, get to a point where we say yay or nay. And we shouldn't have that. We should have a plan that's showing us how we're gonna get there on your 10-year plan. And then which projects specifically are related to the dollars you're collecting. I'd like to see, for every dollar you collect here is going to this project, because right now you're saying we got all these things. Well, which thing are you gonna do? Is it the plant first? Is it the capacity? Is it a both? Is it a combination? Is it a phased? It would be a little bit nice to see the financial with the project timelines at the same time, that we knew this dollar is impacting this project. I know that's a little hard but it would be nice to see that dimension in this request.
Thank you.
Sorry, there's a lot to unpack there, but
I hear you, and you may recall that we were very aggressive at presenting a lot of those findings last year and the year before. I'm picturing the one-pager. Remember, we handed out the 11 by
the
17 and had all the projects and spelled out. We can absolutely provide as much information. We can go back. We can explore that. I love geeking out about it. I also don't want to be in a position where we're repeating ourselves too much. So what I'm hearing is more information would be better at this point.
yeah, or visualizing what
Yep.
your goals are, because it is a huge increase. In the 12 years I've been on this council, and I could look to the mayor for 24 years, this is a large increase year over year, and I'm still struggling a little bit with getting to what you're saying is the standard of $25 additional or whatever it is for water, when there's so many other things increasing right now. And I know we're in this dilemma zone of, like, we got aging infrastructure, we need to address it. So we need to be very thoughtful in every dollar we ask from our citizens, and that we can really correlate that revenue to an expense or to a project.
Thank you.
Sharon, I wanted to just add one thing while you've got this slide up. I think the roadmap that we kind of agreed to pursue, it says right there to adjust the rate/service fee revenue to 12 to 14% per year. But on this particular case, the service fee revenue is going up by 30% or more, and the rate is going up by 12%. So if you combine those two together, we're well past the 12 to 14%. So we're well off of our roadmap. And I understand that you can equate it a different way, where you look at the cost of all the projects and the revenue coming in, and if you want to match those up, it would take this size of an increase to get back on track, essentially, or get on the pathway. But I think when we looked at and kind of expressed a preference for this type of a roadmap, I think our expectation might have been a little bit different at that time than what we're seeing tonight, which certainly is where my level of uncomfortableness with this is. That, at the time, we spent a lot of time considering, where were our rates compared to everybody around us, and where would they be, and we're trying to consider both the needs of the infrastructure, but also the impacts on our residents, some of whom are on fixed income, and there's lots and lots of issues out there. And this just on the water, or I guess on the total, when you mentioned that it would be $120 a year or something on a typical house, that's $20 per bill, when lots of these bills are only $100 to start off with. I mean, it's a big increase in total, both in dollars and percentage-wise. And so that's where I think you're catching me being very uncomfortable here, because I think it's different than the roadmap that we kind of gulped hard and we're willing to kind of follow. This appears to be a bit above it. And I know we're just talking about the water part so far, but
Sure. What I'd like to do, if with council's indulgence, is talk through some of where this revenue would go. We do have some slides that show that. We have some slides later in the presentation that show where we are in terms of a comparison. We do feel like this is consistent, but one number I didn't share with you is our own inflationary costs. So while Denver Water is only increasing a tiny amount, we're seeing between 15 and 30% inflation. So those are just the costs of water treatment chemicals, Those are the costs of our equipment and supplies. Jet vacs are $300,000 now, and you've got an 18 to 24 month lead time for them. So we're subject to a lot of those increases as well, which if we can skip maybe 2 slides, I can start digging into that a little bit. This does not have a lot of granularity, but there's a lot behind it that I'd be happy to provide later after this evening's presentation. But you can see that if we were to increase, as recommended, the 12% plus $4 bi-monthly, we get $4.78 million in additional revenue forecast. As I mentioned earlier, the majority of that is going to capital projects. It's going to those master plan identified priorities, and we're continuing to refine them. Our priorities started with reinvestment in the Ralston plant. We are really trying hard to make sure that we can keep that workhorse plant up and running. And then our Arvada plant, as you may remember, was built in the 1980s. We're going to try to get another 7 or 8 years out of it, but a lot of the money that we're putting into the immediate needs are directly related to the aging infrastructure of our current plants. That's aside from the recommendation to build new. So that's the 3.5 million of the 4.8. As I mentioned, we've got significant inflation, so we're looking at allocating, we would allocate another $1 million of revenue to supplies and equipment, and we've got some contractual work. I'll give an example. We've got a water leak at 80th and Alkire right now. You know what else is at 80th and Alkire? Ralston Valley High School. And so it's a very difficult repair for us. It's south of 80th in Alkire. And in order for us to get down to the line, we've been trying to go 12 to 15 feet down ourselves. This is an example where we're contemplating hiring out as a contractor, both because they're going to have specialized equipment for safety reasons and also for speed. When you're in a very narrow area with a lot of traffic, we're spending some money on contracts, and those costs are going up too. So that's where $1 million of the additional revenue would go. We're allocating $79,000 for our city support services. Those are our internal service funds, which are also increasing. So that's things like our fleet and our IT, our awesome legal team. Only $53,000 this year is the Denver water contract, so that is a small amount. $96,000 helps support the additional cost of having the staff that we do. That's increases to salary, other things, personnel related. And as I mentioned, we're not asking for new positions from the water fund, but we have an engineering inspection foreman that we're proposing moving from the general fund and splitting it among these 3 enterprise funds. So that's where that 0.34 FTE is. It's a third of that existing foreman position we would allocate to this fund, acknowledging that we kind of run like a business. And so we pay the inspection team internally, if you will, to provide us inspection services. So this is what we would be able to fund with the proposed recommendation. If we were not able to fully fund this recommendation, it's likely that the capital projects line would be decreased, and we would have to continue to defer more of those projects for aging infrastructure into the future. We could do that with council's direction, but that is, at this point, our recommendation is to not do that.
A couple points I've got on this. One is that on the whole discussion of having both a rate increase and then the bi-monthly fixed fee increase, it feels to me a little bit like we want to shift, and you had a great discussion last year of why we want to increase the fixed fee portion, but it seems like it's double dipping to me a little bit, because we're trying to shift more of the cost to a fixed fee, but then we're also adding in a rate increase. So that's where I think the perception of a double dipping is coming in. And secondly, we've got capital outlay and capital projects. Well, what were the bonds for? Is that over and above this?
Yes, so in our 10-year CIP budget, we have several $100 million of projects, and the bond last year was for $50 million.
Right.
And so we are slowly trying to catch up on cash. We may be coming forward to recommend an additional bond issue. We won't have the cash to do all of the work that's needed.
So is this 3.5 million over and above the bond projects?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
$50 million of bonds, and we knew this when we issued it last year, was not going to be enough to cover all of the expenses if we want to continue to be in the water treatment business.
Okay.
I think the concern I have is knowing what is the $3.5 million going to, because you got bonds, you get more revenue, you get, but what are we getting for it? And I think that's where you're losing, at least me in this conversation, is, yeah, you got this project now, 50 million, we haven't seen that done yet, and you're already looking at more projects, and then I start questioning, just like our roads, do you have the capacity to even do what you're asking to do, and do you have the contracting availability to even do what you're doing? And are you delivering on these projects within the same fiscal year? I mean, there's a lot of questions around this, and that's why I think I'm struggling with the 3.5 million around it, because I don't see the correlation. You already have a lot of projects in your queue, and you're asking for yet more that may come up in the future. I almost feel like we need to slow that down and wait till that happens, or it gets a little bit closer. And I know you have this response that, hey, it's aging, and if, it might blow up, and we're going to lose all our water. Well, I get that that's a risk, but we also need to be, financially responsible to our citizens who are the taxpayers that are paying this.
If I could jump in here.
Yeah.
I just want to really be clear that what is being brought as part of these rates is exactly aligned with the roadmap that was brought forward. So we aren't jumping ahead of that. This is consistent with the conversations that we've had and the timeline. I think where we did have a miss here is not bringing forward that sheet and showing you here's what's in it, and here's where we're going, here's where it started. And the biggest increase that we're seeing and the impacts are coming in from that inflationary work to get it done. Just as a reminder, we geared up on a capacity side with our engineering and our utility engineers to move this work forward. So this is all part of the plan. And maybe we should have taken actually a couple workshops to walk us back a little bit on where we started. But we're not off from the roadmap that came in, and the rate increases and the fixed fee increases. This was all part of that 18 months that we walked through of how we're going to get there from here. We are pumping the brakes a bit to go to the 12% because the rates, and I appreciate the assertiveness when they first came through in our first round internally when we walked through this, the proposed rate increases were much higher. We are bringing them down quite a bit to the 12%, considering our residential tolerance and the current economic conditions.
So that means the 0.7% was aligned with that as well from Denver? I'm just, because if the numbers that fed into that direction are spot on exact, like you said, what variables change between last time to this time that still make us feel that we need to stay with the same direction, the 12% and the $4?
Well, that is that's bringing it into speed. Let me correct one thing. Not everything's spot on exactly what was in, because we've had inflationary changes. We've improved our designs and what's included in the capital. So it's not exact, but those pieces are changing. Denver Water went down, other things went up. So it's all brought in together into that rate calculation that's hitting we brought down the rate from what was originally proposed.
Yeah, I wish we had just a little bit more time to talk
I agree.
through that. Sensitivity, please don't take any of the questioning from me, at least offensively or anything about this process. I just need to feel comfortable with where we're going. We had a neighboring city that had issues around rate increases, and we are hypersensitive around their struggles.
We've had that very conversation.
Okay.
I think many of the questions, if not all of them that you've asked tonight, we've discussed internally and gone through quite a bit. And I don't mean to sound defensive. I just want to make sure that everybody is clear that we didn't change the roadmap that we spent such a great time building a foundation for. And I do want to own that we could have brought that spreadsheet to show you where we are at and some of those cost changes that came into that spreadsheet, because that was taken into consideration.
How difficult, I'm looking to both the team, how difficult would it be to just get us a visual of the financial, like, few years of what we look at to be, and maybe some high-level projects? You're not gonna get it spot on, but anticipating your top priority projects would be these that are not related to the bond, right? I think that's one thing we need to be very clear, they're not related to the bond. And could we merge the two data onto a visual that we can maybe understand a little bit
We have
better?
that information, so we can certainly
perfect.
come up with something.
Okay,
We
yeah, if we
have,
can get
we have a
that,
lot of data that we could summarize for you.
yeah, if it'd just be simple, like, for me at least, that we can visualize it, I think that would be wonderful if we can get that before our next meeting on this. Okay, thank you.
We can work on that. Thank you.
And may I follow up one question, Lori, you mentioned that this proposed fee and rate increase wouldn't put us off the roadmap, but I think, are you looking at that from a yield of revenue that puts us on the roadmap, or are you looking at that from an increase in price to the customer that still keeps us on the roadmap? Because to my eyes, it looks like from the price to the customer that these proposed fee and rate increases puts us well off the roadmap, at least with that relationship, what the customer expects. The yield of money might be more on that roadmap or something.
When I'm speaking about the roadmap, and Sharon will correct me if I'm wrong, we look at the roadmap as a package with revenues and expenditures and costs that have gone up and the ultimate cost increases to the customer. It is not going to be exact, and when we project in the future, it will change too, because cost will change. Much like when we had to consider what Denver Water, when they had upped their rates, was that 2 years ago? Yes. We had to fully adjust for that. And so fortunately, the decrease in the Denver Water helped us offset some of the other increases that were coming in.
Okay.
And just like we do with the city budget, we model at least 10 years out. We're starting to work with our team on modeling even further out. So Councilmember Mormon, you asked earlier about sort of what's that longer term rate increase look like. Councilmember Fifer, I think you said, what's the trajectory with the journey that we're on? Yes, we are really trying to tune that in, not just for 10 years, but even decades out, because of the infrastructure that we're building and proposing to build. It will be here for decades. And so it's just appropriate to expand that. So I wanted to clarify, this is the second year of a 2-year budget. And so we didn't bring forward everything this year that we probably could have. I'm happy to provide a lot more of that data that we've been crunching that got us here.
Sharon, real quick, I know we've discussed that we bonded this past winter. I seem to recall us discussing bonds far north of 50 million, though, about 700 million if my memory serves correctly. What's the timeline on getting those next rounds of bonds, and how does it relate to this?
So we issued bonds in December of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, we were predicting another bond issue in 2 years. Working with our financial consultants, that's looking like it's about right. Okay. So we would be approaching council next year for a recommended bond issue. We're fine-tuning the timing of the debt issue, because we don't want to take on more debt than we can spend. But at the same time, we don't want to push our existing Arvada plant to the point where it fails. And we're at a point now where our engineers are advising us on the potential sort of sunk costs that we have if we continue to put more money into that plant. We're not going to get it back out. It's just trying to extend the life a few more years. So we've got a lot of work to do, even just to keep the plants running for 7 or 8 years, that plant.
Remind me when that plant first opened?
That one was early 1980s.
Early 1980s?
82.
What's the average lifespan of a water treatment plant?
So it depends on how you start. And so if you look at our Ralston plant, which was 60 years old last year, that one was built with really solid bones, I would say, built of brick, custom built for the sophisticated water treatment that we need today. It's doing great. If you haven't heard, Arvada won the 3rd place in the regional taste test among all the neighboring utilities last week at the Rocky Mountain Water Conference. So I think that's a testament to just that plant has bones that will last 100 years. but it needs reinvestment. It needs some concrete work. We need to rebuild the filters, which we're in the process of doing. And so you asked about the lifespan of a plant. So compare that to our Arvada plant, which in 1982 was more like a manufactured home. If I could make a comparison type of plant, so like the bones of the infrastructure aren't as sturdy and strong as the Ralston plant. And so when you're looking at reinvesting, and we did this in the master plan, we looked at, does it make sense to reinvest in this Arvada plant that doesn't have that same bones, that same structure to it? It actually turned out to be more economically beneficial to replace it. So it really depends on the plant. So we're sitting here at 40 years old for the Arvada plant, and it's not worth reinvesting anymore because of the way it was originally constructed. It's a good plant. It produces good water for us, and at the same time, it doesn't have that sturdy bones to it.
And it's got 7 to 8 years left. How long would it take us to construct a new plant, and ideally one whose bones would last longer than 40 years?
Yeah. So our target is to have a new plant up and running in 8 to 10 years. We would need that up and running before the Arvada plant was taken down. So that's part of what we can show when we provided the one pager, I call it, the 11 by 17, that shows the staging of all of that.
Okay, and when would we break ground? Feasibly?
2027 for construction.
Thank you.
We're looking at final sites right now,
Okay.
where we've got a couple of options we're looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I can go on. The next couple of slides are similar. I apologize for the formatting on this one. So on the sewer side, we have, again, aggressive recommendation for capital projects. The additional revenue that we forecast if this recommendation moves forward is $2.151 million. The capital outlay being the biggest part of it, and so that helps us pay for things like the reinvestment component of the North Trunk Line work, which, as we know, is an important part of being able to serve plan development. Metro Water Recovery is raising rates for next year by 7%. And so that's the 719 that we've been passing through. Similar to the water side, we're seeing a lot of inflation and proposing that $216,000 would go to increasing cost of supplies and equipment. $26,000 would be contributions to the internal service funds. $261,000 is allocated to personnel costs. And then for this fund, we are recommending one new position on our wastewater operations team. The purpose of that position would be able to help us get to all of our sewer lines with camera inspections every 5 years. And we're not meeting that target right now. And that means that there's a lot of mysteries out there. I'll give you an example of an inspection process just in the last 12 months. Identified 2 bore hits through our sewers that happened months, if not years prior, and we just didn't know that they were there, and so they're literally a bore running through our line. That's why we need to have a regular inspection program for our assets. So that's the one FTE that we're recommending, and then the 0.34 is another fraction. I think it's actually 0.33, another fraction of that engineering inspector foreman position. So again, if this rate and fee increase doesn't move forward as recommended, we would likely start cutting back on the capital projects. The challenge there, as I mentioned, is that the majority of our projects are combined funded. So if we don't fund the reinvestment side of a trunk line project, then it's not feasible to move forward with the capacity side of that project. They kind of go together. Any questions about that? Thank you. And then stormwater is next. Stormwater is a much smaller fund overall. So our recommendation is a 5% rate increase. And I want to talk about that because we actually have identified in the master planning a lot more capital project costs. But we feel like we haven't done the work we want to on the financial strategy side for this fund yet. There are some recommendations we're hearing, from our financial consultant that we consider a bond issue on this fund, which we have not done in the past. But before we brought you anything that was more aggressive, we kept it lower this year, limiting our ability to proceed with capital projects, but also feeling like this was a year to do some reallocation. We are recommending 2 new positions from this fund. One is regulatory in nature. It's a new inspector to support our MS4 permit with the state and EPA. The other position is to help support our stormwater operations team, similar to the sewer operations team. So they would be able to help us increase our maintenance intervals so that we can get in and see what's happening in our storm system. There are sections of our storm system that haven't been inspected since the first inspection under warranty. And we really feel like there's a lot of unknowns, both in terms of condition and potential stuff that we might find in the line when we get out there. Bore hits, material that could cause a backup in case of a flood. So that's what that additional 2 FTE would help with, and it's actually 0.33 FTE, I think exactly, that would be part of the engineering inspector foreman position. So here you can see we've got a modest amount of money going toward capital projects, and then similar increases in inflation for supplies, equipment costs, and a little bit of additional funds for personnel. So that's additional $200,000. So hearing no questions, I'm going to show you some comparative data. So this is a chart that shows where Arvada's 2023 rates are and proposed 2024 rates are compared to neighboring cities. These are all set to the 2023 rates, with the exception of Lafayette, which is on the far right side. It's the highest bar. If you haven't followed Lafayette's story, in my personal opinion, it's a cautionary tale. Lafayette found themselves in a position earlier this year where they didn't have money left in their water enterprise fund, and they had to do a 9% mid-year rate increase, and they're forecasting double-digit rate increases for years to come. They're taking a lot of feedback right now on not raising system development charges when they had large amounts of growth. And so they're really struggling with a new financial strategy. You can see how high they are on the right side. The Arvada rates are indicated with the outline in blue. So you can see that we're below the average for the cities we typically compare ourselves to for both 2023 and then the proposed 2024, again, compared to the 2023 rates.
And we don't know what, like Broomfield, Thornton, Westminster, or Golden are proposing for 2024?
We don't know. I can make a comment on Westminster. You may recall that in past years they've been to the far right. They've been one of the tallest bars. Their council voted in this past year to eliminate their highest tier completely, and so they no longer have revenue from the highest users at the high tier, and so that brought their overall average for a single-family home significantly lower. So they're having to balance that lost revenue, but also you can see that they are more in the middle now than they were in the past.
Would it be possible to find out what these other communities are looking at for 2024?
Yes, to the extent to which we can, probably make some phone calls. Not everybody's published theirs yet. I think we've seen from Denver, they're more in the 5% category. So we've seen that number, but we can absolutely look and see what others are doing.
Just out of my own curiosity, why is Boulder's stormwater so much higher than everyone else's?
Yes, we can. Do you mind if I answer that question when we get to the stormwater slide? Okay, awesome. Because we've got each of these broken down. But I want to show you the next slide. This was prepared by one of our financial consultants. It compares us to a lot of other cities along the Front Range and special districts. I thought it was a really interesting visual, so I'm not going to talk through every detail here, but you can see City of Arvada single-family home for 2023 is in that lower quarter, if you will, and if we went through the mental exercise of, okay, well, this is actually our 2024 rate recommendation in yellow. If we increased by 35% or 50%, just as an exercise, where would we be? And you can see there by the brackets that we would be still within the range of the front range. We don't want to be there, but I thought this was helpful to see just in context. You'll see that Denver Water total service is more in the top quarter. That's their out-of-city rate. Next slide. So this is where we break down each of the different funds for increases. And as Councilmember Simpson pointed out, we also showed that in the previous bar chart that had the three different colors. But this shows where we are with water. And again, this would be on a monthly basis, $6.75 increase from 2023 to 2024. That's for water. For the sewer portion of the fund, we're moving a little bit more to the right, which we have been. But this annual increase for a single-family home would amount to about $3.60. Oh, sorry, that's storm. Sorry. I've got it. For sewer, it's $45.60 per year, $3.80 per month. And the next slide, and this is the stormwater slide. As you can see, we're quite low compared to everybody else. Our proposed increase is $3.60 for the year, which is 30 cents a month.
Do these numbers all include the fixed fee charge?
They do, yes. And they do for all the communities we compare to, of course, as well.
Thank you.
So I'll make a comment on the stormwater charges. First of all, Boulder has a lot more staffing. They put a lot more resources into their environmental programs in general, and so stormwater is one of those. Stormwater also includes a lot of flood protection type work. Also funded from our stormwater fund are our capital projects that we coordinate with Mile High Flood District on. So I think if you look at Boulder's budget, they've just put a lot more money into both the environmental aspect of stormwater as well as the flood mitigation aspect of stormwater. Another observation, and this is something we'd like to look at this year, is that many of our neighboring cities have switched to a fixed rate for all single-family homes. So instead of charging by impervious surface square footage like we do, which requires us to recalculate it on a 10-year interval, they've switched to a flat fee, which can make it, in some respects, easier to understand. But you can see here that we're quite low compared to our neighbors, and the need that's really driving any significant increase on our part is capital investment and reinvestment. It's helping us prepare for the more serious flood conditions that we're projecting to have. It's helping us upsize small infrastructure. It's helping us do projects like the wonderful Lake Arbor project. That was a APWA award-winning project this year for the Colorado section. So we're not recommending an aggressive rate increase this year just because we want to do some more modeling so we can answer questions on exactly which projects will get funded. But I hope this shows that we are very much on the low end.
And Broomfield has no stormwater charges. That's
right. And so not sure where they get their money to do their regulatory requirements or other things, but they haven't. Another comment I'll make about when we compare ourselves to Broomfield, overall their infrastructure is much newer. And so they aren't quite to the phase of their development where they are facing the same kind of aging infrastructure issues as the city of Arvada and some of our neighbors. I think their time is coming, but they've got a little bit more, of the clock to run with newer infrastructure, so they don't have the same kind of competing forces that we do. So I want to talk about affordability, because what I heard is this is the next slide, please. This is definitely something that we have been talking a lot about. We take very seriously. Especially, we talked earlier this evening about fixed income households, and how can we make sure that we are supporting those folks in our community that have some additional needs for financial support. So I've got some numbers to show you. First of all, as you may recall, we do offer no interest payment arrangements. And so if anybody has trouble paying a bill, we encourage them to call us, and then we can set this up. And it helps us because we can put them on record as having a payment plan. We can set up a reasonable payment. that they can afford. And it helps them because we stop with like the auto phone calls that remind them that they have to pay a bill, or letters, correspondence, or even liens. So we have 513 payment arrangements that were started here in 2023, a little bit less than last year, but still a significant number. And in general, those work extremely well. The folks that reach out to us really want to get caught up, and the fact that we can do it at no interest is very helpful to them. I asked the team about our one-time hardship credits. We talked about this before, where we can offer a one-time hardship credit for anybody who's having trouble. We have lots of folks that just, due to circumstances in life, that extra $100 can really go a long way. But we've only done 2 this year so far, and we did none last year. And so this is something, even as we were preparing this slide, we were talking about how do we make more of our customers aware of this offering. And I would like to see that number increase, because we don't want folks to feel like, that they can't afford to pay their bills. We want to work with them. And then, as you may recall, we talked about this last year. It was a relatively new source of funding for lower income households, and it aligns with the low income household energy assistance funds. And these come through the counties, and we were able to provide a conduit of funds to help 141 of our households this year so far get connected with those federal dollars. And so in many of these cases, these were folks that either had a payment plan or were in arrears, sometimes thousands of dollars. And this federal grant funds were able to get them caught up and to a zero balance. We're hopeful that those funds will continue to be available. They were originally established for a limited period of time, but if they are continuing to be available, we will certainly continue to identify which customers could be eligible and direct them to that source of assistance. And then in the year ahead, benchmarking in general is a goal that we have as a team to understand where we are, not just in terms of rates and fees, but how we benchmark against other utilities and other aspects of the operational program. We are aware of other cities that partner with NGOs, or like Denver Water partners with United Way? Partners with United Way, so that they have strong partnerships with other groups that can provide assistance to those folks who may be struggling with their bills. So we want to benchmark against that. There are some interesting studies out now on framing affordability in the context of how many hours you would work at a local minimum wage to pay for an average bill. Those are the types of benchmarks I'd like to be able to provide to council as we proceed with this journey of financial and service level sustainability. So just want to let you know that this is very much on our minds, and certainly if anyone listening, or you talk to anybody in the community who's having trouble with their utility bill, please contact us. Our team members can help. They can help get folks connected to these different opportunities to help them pay their bills. We will absolutely work with them. If they don't contact us, it's very difficult for us to know what's going on or how we might be able to help.
Any sense of how many turnoffs we've had to do?
So the only turnoffs this year we've done are for our backflow program. So we suspended shutoffs during COVID for public health reasons, and we actually were just talking about this earlier today. The folks that are we're actually seeing an increase in non-payment, unfortunately, are those folks who are. It's not about the water bill. They'll pay the water bill, but they will refuse to pay the minimum service charge for waste hauling, which is on the same bill. So as far as shutoffs, we have suspended that for now for public health reasons, and give folks a chance to take a shower and cook a pot of pasta.
But a sense of our delinquency rate, do you have?
I don't have those numbers. It's very low. Chris, do you know off the top of your head? No, it's really low.
It tells us something that we're not totally out of line because people are paying their bills.
Yeah, and we've got a few hundred liens that we proceed with, sort of lien letters every year, but it's often less than 100 liens that we actually get filed with the county. What's nice about that is that it helps us keep our books pretty clean, and then it also it keeps folks from getting thousands and thousands of dollars behind.
And you're saying that some amount of those are in protest to the waste hauling fee?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yes, we're working on understanding, especially this year. We are in the middle of our process for liens this year. We're looking to dial into what the data is showing us and telling us, but we definitely have some folks who are very vocal about protesting that way.
Okay.
We have not taken any steps to do water shutoffs, though.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
One, I've gotten a threatening letter to shut off my water twice this year. And it's because my wife's used to automatic payments. So I look at Brian. But it's because it's like you actually have to get the bill. You actually need to call in to do your credit card. I know we have different options in there, but if I want to just put a credit card on file and just have you hit me every month, 99% of all my other, why haven't we looked at doing that to make it a little bit easier to pay? Because it's such a one-off process to the consumer. It's not in our daily routine to go pay that anymore when everything's on automatic payment. I can do it if I fill out a form, write a check, avoid a check, mail it to you, do this, and then you'll pull it out of my checking.
I finally did that last month.
Yeah, and
after all these years.
Even I
my
haven't
wife
done it
is
yet.
like, you got to be kidding me. I'm not going to be all this paperwork and do a fax, which I just don't have fax. You can carry it to City Hall when you go on Monday, that kind of stuff. And maybe we should consider just putting a debit card and let people just automatically hit. Maybe you have a reason why we don't do it, Brian, but maybe that's something we can look at to ease of paying.
I'm going to have to punt to Sharon because that operation's out of the utilities.
Oh, it doesn't come out of finance, okay.
Yes, I definitely work with finance to make sure that we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's when we approve those types of transactions. So I would say that we just haven't probably explored the credit card auto bill very much, in part because of the fees. That's not to say that we couldn't do that, but the only auto pay we have right now is for, as you mentioned, checking accounts. So it's an ACH.
Yeah, if I want to use a credit card, I literally have to pick up the phone and call you. And I have to do it every month or every other month or whatever.
So there is an online payment option.
One time only, and that's the problem.
For one time only.
No
That's
reoccurring.
right.
So you just have to remember to go in, log in, put in, and pay that one bill. I mean, unfortunately, no one puts stamps on checks anymore and mails back. I mean, that's just not the way. I would encourage us to maybe align ourselves into the era of doing that. Because that could be some of your struggles. Because I have gotten 2 nasty letters saying that you are shutting me off.
You should have shut them off.
I was tempted to just see what would happen.
Make a note.
But I did pay the $10 every.
How do you shower with a friend if your water's turned off?
Oh, God.
Neighbors.
Thank you. I hear your feedback.
Could we look at that for ease?
We can look at that.
Just because I just think it's too cumbersome to pay the bill. And if you want to have ease of making sure people are paying even more so, it might just, a younger age is now working that way. If it doesn't tap on my watch, I don't buy sometimes, so it's kind of different now. Yeah. The second thing is on affordability. I just did a quick scan through the website because I wanted to triple check myself, but I don't see anything referencing other than you don't say anything about any of this. I don't know if you need to or not. I would look to the rest of the team and council. But when you're saying, please call us, you're verbally saying that, but there's nothing on the website that says, call us for assistance in this way. None of this information that you have on this is on the website. So even though, we've supported 513 payment arrangements or anything, it needs to be easy to find this in your payment area. And I just scanned in payment, I scanned in rates, I scanned in also. I did find last year's meeting on this, so I am going to go back and watch last year's meeting, which that was posted on there. But we need to have a little bit more effort, I think, in showing that we are willing to work with you. I don't want the abuse. I'm a little worried about abuse, but just like the cable company, it's the same thing. If you can't pay your bill, they can do the low rate and they tell you how to go through that process. I think we need to have something like that as well.
We can absolutely take action to beef that up.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw in with the having a system where we can do online auto pay. The option to go paperless would also be great. I imagine that would probably save the city quite a bit of money in terms of printing and mailing costs, because a lot of people would prefer to go paperless with an auto pay.
Thank you. Yes, and we do have some paperless options. So I would like, including, if I may, the option to continue to receive those great bill stuffers with all that wonderful information in them. If you open up your bill, you know, there's that green piece of paper that you may or may not look at. We hope you do. But we can actually get folks on that same information by email through a paperless system. So I think that we could do more to raise awareness and communicate that better. We'll look into it. This is our community, so we really care about getting this right. Okay, next slide. So I'm close to the end here. The last big update I wanted to share with you is about our smart meters. So we have been, as we've been replacing aging meters, we've been replacing them with these cellular read meters. So we just hit a milestone this month. The map has these little tiny words in there that describe the cycles. Each of those is a billing cycle. And because we have, through the majority of the city still, radio read meters, we literally drive a pickup truck with a receiver on it up and down every street every 8 weeks. And each week is a cycle. For the first time, cycle 8, which is in the northeast part of the city, Lake Arbor in that area, we will no longer be doing drive-by meter reads through the whole community as of this month. So we have enough replacement of those meters that we can read them all cellular. This opens up a lot of other opportunities for us, including our own ability to track data for leak detection. One of my favorite things about having a smart meter, I live in that neighborhood and I've been piloting it for a while, is the ability to set up a notification on your watch, you can get on your watch, or your email, and it'll tell you if you have a leak if your meter's running for 24 hours or more straight. So it's really great. When we're only reading every 2 months, it's frequent that we'll hear from customers who had a surprise leak and they didn't know. So that's going to be wonderful. But anyway, our team's really proud that cycle 8 is all smart meters as of this month, and we're making progress. We expect to have overall 16,000 smart meters by the end of the year in the city, and we have about 40,000 customer accounts. So we're getting there. There is an Eye on Water app, you may recall. The mayor helped to do a video on this last year, and it's a wonderful feature. We are working on customizing that app to make the process of signing up more streamlined. So right now, for anybody who has a smart meter who needs to sign up for the process, you need to contact us, and we need to do some work behind the scenes to tie our billing system to our metering system. That is somewhat labor intensive, and we've been working with vendors with some frustration on my part to try and figure out how to get those systems to talk with each other.
How are citizens getting notified that their meter's been switched over?
So we haven't been doing an active outreach yet because we're not ready to do full scale with the app. So you would be able to tell you have a new meter because the lid on it is plastic. So if you go outside your house and take a look and you look down and see a plastic meter lid, you have a new one. If it's metal, like the old style, you're still being read with a radio read. So what our goal is working with our vendors, and this is currently a project. I talked with the vendors last week at the Rocky Mountain Water Conference and poked them a little. The goal is to be able to do a full-scale implementation of the app and roll it out to everyone who has a smart meter. We can indicate that on their bill. So whether they get it electronically or on paper, they'll be able to open their bill, say, hey, you've got a smart meter, follow these instructions to sign up on the app. And we're a little slow on that technology side to be able to roll it out so it's that easy, but that's the goal. And so as soon as we do that, then we'll be able to have a lot more folks taking advantage of that wonderful app. So really proud of this progress. So I think that's the conclusion. If you want to go to the next slide. Oh, there is one more. So we're doing communication, sorry. As we've done in past years, I just wanted to remind council that whenever we do any kind of rate adjustment, we communicate it out as there are a lot of different channels with the community and our customers. So you can see here a list of them all. We're maintaining our utilities transparency website. So we actually have posted on there many council presentations and the links to the YouTube videos if you want to go back and watch them in 2x speed or something. And so it's really important to us that we're communicating with the community that they're not surprised by any changes that are out there. So next slide, and I think this is my last one, yes. So tonight, like I said in the beginning, we're looking for you to provide us with direction. Our recommendation was to align the adjustments to rates and fees with the budget first and second readings this year. That would mean, as we've done in previous years, that new rates and fees would be effective on the January bills. And just next steps on our side, we're continuing to look at those bonds and loans and grants to provide a sort of suite of resources for us. I mentioned earlier, we're looking at modeling beyond just the 10-year horizon into multi-decades. Our engineering team and our finance folks are continuing to refine those project costs and priorities. And then, I can't stress this enough, maintaining rates at lowest practical levels. So we are here with this recommendation because we believe that it is reflective of the direction we've received in the past. And while it is another aggressive rate increase after last year, as you saw from the comparative analysis, we're still very much in the middle of where our neighboring communities are as far as an overall household cost, even with another year of aggressive increases. So that concludes my presentation. And I'm happy, I know we've had a good dialogue and answered questions throughout, but happy to stick around as long as you want to and keep talking.
Can we bring back up Mr. Jones and Ms. Ferre? Either of you have any questions or comments? Give you first shot. Lisa is.
Ms. Ferre,
What's that?
I was just going to say, I'll let Ms. Ferre go first if she has comments or questions.
No, I think you all have pretty much covered a lot of the things that I was going to talk about, other than how much I really love the smart meter program. I have that myself in the house or on the property, and it's detected leaks before for us and saved us a lot of money. So I think it's a great program for us to continue to support and advocate for.
Very good. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, and I think a great dialogue, great conversation tonight. I appreciate the council questions to the team, and would support them in those questions to the team, and hopefully we can get the answers that you've promised and provide us a little bit more clarity around kind of the plan, I think, as Mr. Fifer defined or expressed it. So, but thank you for what you're doing, and fully support the online payment format. I just did that the first time since I've been traveling quite a bit, but now I realize after listening to the mayor that there's a way to do it where I can just set it up. So I may be talking to you on Monday when I'm back in town. So, but again, I appreciate the update. I know it's hard, and for me, it's about planning for the future. And it feels like we need to just make sure that whatever the process is and the cycles that need to be in place, that they make sense, and that there's good communication around that, as you've identified in your slide there. So appreciate it.
Anybody else have any? Yes. Mr. Marriott.
Thank you. So I'll give you team feedback. If this comes to me in this form, knowing what I know now, I will be a no vote. So just so you know that up front. Now, if there's other stuff I need to know so that I'm not a no vote, I'm absolutely here to learn it. But here's my take on it at the moment, and that is, I think the roadmap can mean a couple of different things, and I think we kind of agreed to a roadmap. I tried to express it earlier, maybe didn't express it very well, but I think the roadmap can be the roadmap that we looked at to adopt for our interaction with our customers, or it can be the roadmap that we looked for the financial resources to fill up the plan or to complete the plan. And I guess when I look at it a little bit more towards the roadmap was kind of our look at our prediction of how we're going to deal with our customers. And I realize that there have been some very unexpected things. We have, inflation that's far greater than anyone predicted. We had, system development charges that fell into a little different place than we predicted. But there have also been an offset, at least one offset the other way, and that's our raw water increase from Denver Water fell on the other side. So there'll be some offsets both ways. And I'm more than happy to revisit the financial side of it and the roadmap on the financial side at some point. But I don't think a year or two into a long-term plan probably is the time yet to revisit the roadmap. There may be, again, some offsets the other way. My suggestion would be that either the fee or the rate be lowered so that we stay within that 12 to 14% increase to the customer. And if the shift, if we're behind the curve on the fee versus rate thing, we can keep the $4 fee increase, but the rate increase needs to be a commensurate amount lower than that, so that in total it matches what we kind of adopted as a roadmap, again, with my view looking at it as that was our kind of plan for how we would deal with the cost to our customers. And so those are my suggestions. Honestly, I don't have any problem with the stormwater part of it. It's really just the wastewater and the water is the bigger concern over the wastewater because, again, the fee is so much bigger in the water, the total cost to the customer. But, these, by my just quick look at it, these increases are a lot. I mean, it's a $20 per bill to each and every person. And I know, for some of us that doesn't mean anything, but for a lot of people, I think it does mean things. And, they're affected by inflation as well on both sides. Both their costs are going up, and if they're working, their wages are going up too. So I totally understand that, but I think we have a little more work to do here if I'm expressing it correctly. And if I'm not, I would love to have enough more either discussion about it or additional information to understand where I may be incorrect here at this point. But I would say that if we were voting on this tonight, I would be a no, just so you know.
Other comments? Yes. Ms. Simpson.
Yes. Yes, thank you. So to Mr. Marriott's point, what I would like to know is, with this increase versus a reduced increase, exactly what the impact is to specific projects, their timelines. Is this going to be, well, now we can't afford to build a new water treatment facility and it's going to collapse in 7 to 8 years, we're going to have an enormous problem on our hands? Or is it going to be, well, we can still get to these A, B, and C that are the most red flashing light priority items, but then perhaps these other issues such as increasing capacity in certain areas, maybe we just slow the plans for build out, and then that can actually go over a longer timeline without impacting the residents today. So when we come back for October, that's the information I would like to have to be able to determine if I'm a yes or a no on these rates as proposed, or if we go to something like Mr. Marriott's proposing and reducing them to still get to the higher priority items and maybe draw out some of the others.
Go ahead.
I will just tag on to that. I share the concerns that were expressed tonight about the impact on our residents. And so we've got to be very careful as we move forward on this and looking at what that impact can be. And I was also under the impression when we passed that roadmap that those increases we were really talking about what the ratepayers were going to pay. And so that I'm also looking at that. And so I think that's the lens we need to continue to look at, and I ask that we do that. And then the affordability piece, I appreciate the presentation. I agree with Mr. Fifer that I think that needs to be more accessible, because I certainly have gotten complaints from residents, and I say, please call the city and they can help you come up with a plan. But so few people aren't aware of that or don't know to even call. And so I think we need to make that a lot more accessible for our residents. And then I'll just finally say on that piece too, that at least I'm familiar with what the city of Denver has done recently on affordability related to waste, where they've come up with a rebate program for qualified homes that are experiencing economic hardship. So I think I would encourage us to look at some innovative ways we can also help folks and see what our other neighboring cities are doing, like Denver, for example.
In addition, I won't repeat, I agree with what my peers are saying, but I too, with Mr. Marriott, would be a no vote if it was tonight. It would not have been probably favorable for what you're seeking for. And mine are a little bit different, but in addition to what the team has or the council has already said, is I think sometimes we're at a disadvantage on council when we talk about things over time, right? Like we know key things, major projects, but when we get into the details of what was discussed last year to this year, I wish, and I'm just underscoring what I've already said, I just wish we spent a little bit more time. I don't always like rehashing history, but I do think we need to talk about the content or context in which we came to that roadmap as a refresher. I'm going to go back and rewatch last year just to hear the conversation, because I think there was a lot of discussion around the fixed fee too, and that we kind of glazed over that a little bit today, other than what Mr. Marriott said, because I think we were struggling with this fixed fee because I didn't recall that always being in my bill, but I think I was corrected that it was. And my wife makes the money; she pays the bills. I don't see them; I just act like it, I guess. But there needs to be some sort of continuity in that conversation to keep us through this journey, right? And I think it's imperative, and I've said this over and over, so which is we always should have a comparison from last year to this year, or some trajectory that shows where we're trying to go. Instead of just saying, well, this is where we are today, this is all of our peer groups, we're good, we're in the middle, we're good. Well, okay, fine, we're good, but what was it 12 years ago? What are we paying today? And what are those influences? And you got to tell your story. I feel like we're missing a story here of where we're trying to go. And unfortunately, with council changing over, with citizens coming and going, unfortunately, we do need to kind of do a repeat of that storytelling so that we're all on the same page when we get to that point. So this is just an addition to what everyone else. I still like visual data to kind of show the history and the path forward, specifically to this, because it is a huge increase. I feel it's more than $20, but you know, my bill is hundreds and hundreds of dollars, which so it's probably, I think Mr. Jones brought up last year when he has to fill up his pool. I think it's a huge dollar amount as well, but you know, it's a lot of money for some people, and like my peers say, some people cannot afford this sometimes, and $20 is $20, and that could be a lot to somebody. So, and then the last thing, I want to stress the accessibility to that assistance. It just has to be there. We need to be good stewards of those that are struggling in our community. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good.
Feedback.
And you got my comments earlier, so. Very good. I know we struggled with this last year and put you through the ringer, and we eventually got there. I think council's made some good comments in terms of what additional information we need to be able to properly represent the citizens and be able to make a decision on October the 16th.
Thank you. Well, we're happy to provide that. For the record, I don't remember being put through the ringer. I maybe blocked it out if that did happen. So thank you all for the feedback. Thanks for listening to the storytelling we did do. More to come.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is our public comment portion. Does anybody else have any public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Do I have a public comment? Oh, I guess I missed my previous opportunity and I can't top this presentation. But I did just want to say good evening, Mayor, other council members, those of you that are here, and anybody listening. I'm Lisa Crespin. I'm from the Arvada Historical Society Board, and I'm literally just here to invite you and welcome you to our 20th annual cemetery tour that is taking place at the Arvada Cemetery. It's called Tombstone Tales. It's this Saturday, the 23rd from 11 to 2. And you can purchase tickets for this at historyarvada.org, or you can come and join and participate on site. It doesn't last the whole time. You go through different little vignettes, but these cemetery tours have allowed us to be able to, reflect on the past, hear some stories of our founders of our city of Arvada, those people that have built this community. They do that through storytelling, but also some reenactment, and it's people who are very passionate about Arvada. So I just want to welcome you and invite you to that. There are some of these out on the table. And also, you get a little discount if you are a member. It's very inexpensive to be a member of the Arvada Historical Society. So thank you very much for your time, and that was a most interesting presentation. I don't know, where does the public make comments if they have things that they might want the city council to consider in reflecting that? Is there a place to do that?
There will actually be a public hearing.
Okay.
So we will take
Perfect.
testimony that night.
I do have some thoughts on that, so thank you very much for spending the time to be very considerate about what she presented, though.
Very
I
good.
appreciated being able to see that.
And of course, when you talk about the cemetery tour, I always think about Nancy Young, so.
Yes, I know, that
Yeah.
was the love of, she was
She was
so
phenomenal.
passionate about that,
Yeah.
and she was able to have a really good cemetery tour that she pulled together
Yeah.
before her passing, so
Yeah.
we do like to honor her in that.
That's
Thank you
wonderful.
so
Thank
much
you.
for your time.
City council reports. Yes?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to comment on the hateful messaging graffiti that was mentioned earlier this evening near Ralston and Allendale. I think we as community leaders must publicly condemn such hateful acts and really be unwaveringly clear that that is just not tolerated or accepted in our city. That's not who we are as Arvada. And, I think we are very concerned about our public safety here in our city, and I think a key part of that is, making swift public condemnation of hateful acts like that. And so I think it's really important that we call it what it is, and we make it very clear that it is not acceptable here. And that is important to show our solidarity with those people that are targeted by such crimes. So,
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones, Ms. Foray, did you have anything?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Same, just thanks again for letting us participate in Zoom.
Very appropriate. Anybody else? I've just got a little comment. CSU played a heck of a game, without question, and I was very depressed until the end of the game. So my compliments to CSU for putting up a very good fight, and I wish them the best the rest of the season. Ms. Gillis?
Yep, I do just want to say thank you for your comments. I took copious notes, and hopefully we'll get you everything that you need, because your points are well made, and we need to circle back. This is a big impact to our community. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then just a reminder, tomorrow night is the training. CML's coming here to do training for all council candidates, and I know many of you are planning to be there.
Ms. Morris?
Nothing from me, Your Honor.
Very good. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.